So if you have high LDL cholesterol, that does not mean that you are going to die sooner. And there was a study that just came out 2 or 3 months ago showing that. But if you have high LDL cholesterol, that does mean that your chance of getting diagnosed with cardiovascular disease goes up. Okay, the chance of diagnosis goes up, but the chance of dying sooner does not go up.
Dr. Darren Schmidt, how did you find carnivore?
So it goes back to being in college. I wanted to be a doctor of something. So actually, I was pre-med, but then I surveyed a dozen students and doctors of medicine about their profession, and nobody encouraged me to go into medicine. So I looked at um, optometry and podiatry, and then I spent some time with a chiropractor. So I decided to become a chiropractor because I grew up on a farm. I was used to manual labor and using my hands. So then I went to school, and I actually had started studying nutrition in 93, and I started chiropractic school in 94. And in 95 and 96, I was taking nutrition classes, but I spent a lot of time outside of the classroom, like at seminars. I went to 2 seminars a month for 2 years in chiropractic school. And there's one doctor that I saw at a seminar, and he was talking about a variety of like old school nutrition tricks, and um, it was amazing. So I decided to be a chiropractor who focused on nutrition. Graduated in 97. In 99, I went to a seminar sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation. So learning from Dr. Price and what he discovered in the 1930s. He traveled the world for 10 years, looked at 144 different tribes. And I learned at that seminar that one of the values of dairy is the fat, like there's good fat. And that was a new concept for me. Like, okay, you mean, wait, there's some fat is bad and some fat is good. Some is good. She's like, yeah, some fat is good. So I decided to go low carb there in 1999. And I had started my practice 2 years earlier. And since then, I've only purchased like 5 loaves of bread, no rice, no pasta, no, grain, pastries, none of that. I had 6 pops, soda pops in the year 2002. And that's the last time I drank a pop. so, so I was low carb from 1999 to 2015. In 2015, I learned about ketosis. I was cycling in and out. And then in 2018, I started the carnivore diet. I saw Dr. Sean Baker on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I started August of 2018, the carnivore diet. So when I look back at the 3 varieties of low carb diet, the carnivore diet's the easiest and most fun and most flexible. And I still check to see if I'm in ketosis sometimes, maybe once or twice a year, I'll check my blood. And sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. 90 to 95% of my calories are from meat. And I'll have some fruit sometimes. But in 2019, I was super hardcore carnivore, lots of fatty meat for a year. And I went to the gym a lot. I was putting on weight. I felt great, muscles, but then my clothes got too small. So I needed to lose some weight, which is cheaper than buying a whole new wardrobe. So, but in 2019, during that time, I really craved sugar once a month. So I'd buy 5 apples or 5 bananas and just have them in 1 or 2 days. And I could feel my muscles get stronger because I was, just lacking glycogen. And so eating the fructose helped, store up the glycogen in my liver and muscles. So anyways, some people, they go carnivore, straight carnivore for years and decades, and they're totally fine, but not, everybody's different. So that's how I found. Now I'm a chiropractor focusing on nutrition since really 1998, and applying this to my patients. And there's also another diet, the blood type diet. And people ask me about that all the time, even now. I first learned about that 20 plus years ago. And I decided, well, if the low carb diet doesn't work, then I'll rely on the blood type diet, which I've never done. The low carb is, the most genetically correct diet, meat based. Now, some people have various conditions such as prostate cancer. You want to do a pescatarian diet. And some people have autoimmune conditions and, candida, whatever. So there's, different types of food that they should avoid based on their condition. But across the board now for 25 years, it's been a low carb diet.
As a chiropractor focusing on nutrition, um, is this something you recommend to your patients?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, I've been telling people low carb for a long time. And initially, people were really shocked. We're talking 20 years ago. And there was a book I had on eating, it was Dr. Mercola, grain free diet or something. And people would say, well, how am I supposed to stop bread? And I would just point to that book. And they hated it. They just hated the idea of not having grains, of like, eating low carb. And, even though the Atkins diet was popular around 1997, but now, people are more open to eating low carb. Now, again, a lot of people that see me currently, they've seen all my videos on, not all of them, but they've seen my videos on YouTube. They know what they're getting into. And a lot of people go low carb and they lose 20 pounds, then they come and see me as a patient. So it's easier now than what it was 20 plus years ago. Did I answer your question okay?
Yeah.
Very good.
So can you contrast for me then? You said specifically you're focusing on nutrition. What is the other kind of chiropractor?
So the other kind of chiropractor is the chiropractor who focuses on like physical therapy or rehabilitation. So you got regular chiropractors, they adjust the spine. Then there's more than two specialties, but the two big specialties are nutrition and then like physical rehab.
How does a chiropractor decide which way they're going to go? Like you took classes in nutrition. Do all chiropractors do that, or is that you chose to specialize that way?
Yeah, all chiropractors take nutrition classes in school, and there is a specialty postgraduate clinical nutrition type degree chiropractors can get. But I, wanted to be, I was pre-med before I entered chiropractic school. Like, I want to heal the body, pretty holistic, right? It's just the idea of like head to toe, how do you get people better? And I kind of was born holistic, I guess. I mean, I was raised on a farm, and you got to be somewhat holistic to plant a seed and watch it grow for a couple months and then harvest it. So you got to think like long term. And so I had that viewpoint, like, how can I get somebody better, fully better, as cheap as possible, as efficiently as possible, with no side effects? And that's by nutrition. So that's my focus. Is I solve complex chronic illness using only diet and supplements. That's my specialty.
And just to go back to when you're talking about your history with low carb and so forth, I think it's pretty awesome that you can actually remember the year that you last had soda.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll tell you
um,
the years I bought
yeah.
bread. Let me tell you that.
That's-
In 2006, I bought um, 3 loaves of bread. In 2016, about 2 loaves of bread. And those are for experiments for digestion, constipation. Like, what would this do? Like, yeah. I used to live in a moldy house that caused constipation. I worked in a moldy office for 13 years, and that just about killed me, hurt my heart. So I just always experimenting with my diet and supplements.
when you have a patient come in, um, have you ever managed to move them over to a low carb or a carnivore approach and found that more than the problem they came to see you with has corrected?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I remember one of the biggest, hardest things to heal is tinnitus, the ringing in the ears. So in 2015, when I started keto for myself, talking to my patients about it, I started getting patients coming back saying, "Oh, my tinnitus is better," or "My tinnitus is gone." And I didn't say anything to anybody for a year because I couldn't believe it. Like, I tried all these pills and whatever. And then I found, Ivor Cummins on YouTube. He interviewed Dr. Brooklyn, who ENT specialist, and he said ketosis is the best solution for tinnitus. So then, also, like a toenail rash. like those kind of things go away. And then people, just on and on. People, ketosis is the best thing for Raynaud's disease, where people's hands get really cold and they turn purple or white. So yeah, it's surprising. Like, I'm looking for this result. Like there's like a limit to my expectations, and then I have people do this diet, and then this limit keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. So it's like I can predict what people will go through once they start the diet.
My experience talking to people about being on a ketogenic carnivore style of diet is, yeah, it's just, this is why I started, but then this happened, this happened, this happened. What kind of feedback do you get from the patients? Is it like, I can just imagine some people coming in that had never heard about this approach to nutrition before, feeling like they just discovered some kind of magic potion or something.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is. I have several older women, I'm going to say in their 70s, and on the carnivore diet, and they come in the office, and it's like the visits are boring because they have no fatigue, they have no other symptoms, and they don't need a bunch of supplements. I carry like 900 supplements in my office, so we're addressing, cleaning, detoxing the body, helping the liver function better, the lymphatic system, nourishing the organs. We can do all these great things with the supplements. And when people are on the carnivore diet, it's the meat-based low carb diet. Like that's the foundation. And so if they're sick with, let's say they're toxic with, a rerun test, we see plastic in people's bodies and, mold and mercury, metals and stuff. So people will come in with that diet, or, I put them on the diet and they feel better. And then if they plateau, then I know that there's more I have to do with the supplements. You know what I'm saying? So I can see that I'm expecting this much improvement with the diet, but if they only get this much, I'm thinking, okay, what am I missing? Let's do some more lab tests. Let's do some whatever other testing and find out the next barrier within the cells or within the organs that need to be cleaned out with the supplements. So that's been really helpful to the more patients I see, the more experience I get, the more I know what's missing.
So how does this go down with your peers? Um, because I feel like there's almost there, uh, even if we think something like Atkins, low carb, keto is much more accepted now than it was 20 years ago. I think there's still quite a bit of there's still quite a bit of pushback against this in the medical profession,
Right.
I would think. How does that go down?
So that's a really good question. So chiropractors love low carb, and I've taught. Oh yeah. So in the last 4 years, I've taught 8 to 12 times a year, traveling around the country, and I did that, between 2006 and 2000 or 2005, 2015. So 10 years, I taught 8 to 12 times per year, and so I've taught thousands of people, mostly chiropractors, some acupuncturists, etc. And when they come to the seminars that I deliver, they like to hear about low carb. And then I just presented a month ago to 175 medical doctors in New Orleans talking about low carb keto carnivore, and it was a debate. And there was a vegan, so I spoke for 45 minutes. He spoke for 45 minutes, and then we had a 1 hour debate with questions from the audience. And I'd have to say I won that debate. And I think a lot of people wanted me to win that debate because they know that, the vegan community has more mental illness than any other dietary group. And that's been well studied with surveys and research. So when you say my peers, it's all the holistic people, right? So this group of 175 medical doctors, they're very holistic. It was the International College of Integrated Medicine. Great people, fantastic group of people. I've learned a lot from them. It's the people that don't like it are the standard cardiologists and medical doctors and dietitians online. Now, they don't approach me in my office, it's just online, right? And so I can name names, and I go after them because they say the most ridiculous things, like the Mediterranean diet is the best diet. Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. 100% not. And when somebody says that, I know they're an amateur, and I know they don't practice nutrition. They might practice cardiology, they might practice surgery, they might be some kind of a specialist in the medical profession. But if you're in nutrition and if you're actually practicing it to increase health, you would never say that. Now, you can practice nutrition as a dietitian or nutritionist, and you have to talk about the food pyramid because that's your, the American Food Pyramid, that's your license. You have to, or the American Diabetic Association diet, because that's your license. And they don't get anybody well. We all know that. So the question is, who are my peers? My peers are the holistic practitioners, whether it's a nurse, acupuncturist, MD, DCND, on and on and on. I love them all. And then the people who are standard conventional USDA Mediterranean diet, those are not my peers. They do not have the clinical experience I have. They do not have the knowledge. They don't get people well like they should be getting people well. They need to get people like diabetics need to get into ketosis. Without a doubt, type 1, type 2 doesn't matter. You got to get them in ketosis. And the best study for that is the Virta Health trial, which was published in 2019. Yeah, you've heard of that. And Dr. Steve Phinney kind of was one of the spearheads on that. And there's never been a trial that's had greater results. And I've challenged I'm going to say standard MDs, find a study that shows any other diet that's better for weight loss, getting off meds, diabetic medications, lowering blood pressure, lowering inflammation. Just show me one. It's got to be a trial. It can't be a survey or observational study. And nobody's done that. And you can Google Dr. Steve Phinney quack or Virta Health trial debunk. Nobody's done it. And here it is 5 years later. But yet the standard cardiologists, et cetera, they never talk about Virta, but they'll debunk some other kind of a low carb trial or some other low carb study or whatever. But it's like they don't touch Virta. They don't want to talk about it because you can't beat that trial. So 265 people for 2 years, 74% retention rate, 30-pound weight loss or 35-pound weight loss. So anyways, you asked about my peers. So and I've been blocked by a couple of people, standard medical doctors. And it's like, and I'm thinking you can't say these things that you're saying because you're so wrong, even though PubMed agrees with you to some degree that the Mediterranean diet is the best diet. Mediterranean is low animal protein, low fat, high carb. And there's a study, there's actually a trial where they compare the Mediterranean diet with the standard American diet. They had equal outcomes. So when you're promoting the Mediterranean diet, I will argue that you're promoting the junk food that we're already eating. It's still high carb. Some of it's processed. The American diet is 57% processed food, whereas the Mediterranean diet might be less processed food, but yet the carbohydrates and the fat and the protein are the same, right? Very high carb, very low protein, sad low protein, disgustingly sad, and then low fat. So anyways, there's my answer to your question.
Yeah. A very interesting answer. And as I'm somewhat active on Twitter or X, I think I've probably run into some of those cardiologists. But
For sure. Yeah.
why is it this way? Is this just the cardiologists, the traditional MDs? Why are they so fixed like this? Is it they just don't want to rock the boat, or is it something else?
Because the reason why is because there's missing information. Back in the 1960s, we all know that Harvard was paid money to attack fat, and the sugar industry, was being promoted. But that's not, a lot of low carb is talking about that, but there's way more to it. Okay, so the question is, why does a standard cardiology and all these other doctors say the things they say about saturated fat and carnivore and all that stuff? Well, it has to do with LDL cholesterol. So if you have high LDL cholesterol, that does not mean that you are going to die sooner. And there was a study that just came out 2 or 3 months ago showing that. But if you have high LDL cholesterol, that does mean that your chance of getting diagnosed with cardiovascular disease goes up. Okay, the chance of diagnosis goes up, but the chance of dying sooner does not go up. Right? So there's a little nuance there. Right, I know. So here's the deal. Okay, I had this debate 1 month ago, vegan versus carnivore on stage, 175 doctors in the audience. I accepted the invitation to do this debate 9 months earlier. So I had 9 months to study, and I did, and I took a ton of notes. And what I found was that LDL is for the immune system. This is super interesting. So LDL is an opsonin, and what that means is it prepares a meal for one, like in original Latin or Greek. An opsonin prepares a meal for one, like a chef. So LDL prepares bacteria or virus or parasites to be consumed by macrophages. So your LDL can go up because of an infection. And we already know that LDL can go up if you're a lean mass hyperresponder. LDL can go up if you're fasting. LDL can go up if you're ketosis. LDL goes up on junk food. LDL goes up on meat. Does it mean LDL is the cause of heart disease? No. But there are randomized controlled trials where the conclusion is LDL causes heart disease. But it's not true because you can be lean mass hyperresponder, high LDL, you don't have heart disease. So LDL is just another component of this big picture. Every chronic disease is multifactorial, including heart disease. Okay, but so I did a video back, I think it was October, where I talked about LDL as part of the immune system, and I had like 40 studies, and I went through them. It was like an hour-long video, and I talk about infections raising LDL, and I have patients who have chronic infections. I have this one guy, infection in his right here. He could feel it going down behind his left ear, down his neck, spots of pain and pressure, left chest, left torso. And he's been on a carnivore diet, keto, hardcore for a year and a half. He's doing better now than he has in 5 years. His LDL went up so high, the lab couldn't even read it. And then now it's down because he's getting better. We have a patient with cancer. It's all cured now because she went on a raw egg diet. She's eating 12 to 18 raw eggs a day. That was 3 years ago. All of her cancer's gone, metastasis gone. Her LDL was like 306 or something, 308. Now it's down to like 240. So she's getting better. And the LDL was part of that, her getting better. So if somebody has heart disease and they have the man has a typical belly, high blood pressure, fast pulse, out of breath, swollen ankles, you can't blame that on LDL. Right? It's so much more than that. So you got to straighten up the diet, go low carb, get into ketosis, fix the drainage pathways, the kidneys and the liver, and the bloated belly might be candida, fix that. There's probably parasites in their gut. And that's another factor that all of medicine misses. They miss candida, they miss parasites. They suck when it comes to chronic bacteria, chronic viruses. So in 2007, I figured out parasites really well. And I started getting patients to poop out parasites, whether it's this long or 4 feet long or even teeny tiny. They look like pieces of rice coming out. That was 2007. Every week, I have a new patient, new person saying, oh, look at this picture. This came out of my butt, right? It's in the toilet. And they show me a picture. Since 2007. And now it's 2024. Every single week. And I had one person brought in a jar with this worm that was wrapped around inside. And I called up University of Michigan Hospital, which is not too far from here. I said, I got a parasite. Patient brought it in. It's in a jar. Can I bring it in? And you can test it and find out what it is. And they said, no, you're a chiropractor. We don't accept it because you're a chiropractor. I'm like, okay, professional discrimination. That's fine. Totally fine. That's your prerogative. By the way, how many parasites do you identify each week? And they said 400. And I was like, whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot for Southeastern Michigan. And they said, no, it's Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia. I'm like, wait, 7 states in Ohio, 8 states, you only find 400 parasites a week, it should be thousands and thousands, because that's, 50, 60 million people right there, whatever the number is. So again, that's just an example of how medicine, they suck at parasites. And when you get, and they'll give you a drug, and these parasites come out, right? And the drug might be 1 day or 10 days long. But I've had people with supplements, the supplements work really, really well. I've had people eliminate parasites for a year, right? So like initially there's none, then they start coming out. 3 months later, there's a lot every time they go to the bathroom. 6 months later, it starts to decrease in the quantity. And then after a year, now they have no parasites left. So that's an example of like, and mold. Let's talk about mold. So I was in that moldy house and moldy office. And with the office, I sued my landlord, and my mold attorney, she was the first attorney in Michigan to bring mold to the courts. That was 1999. And she goes, "You need to have a mold lawyer, a mold doctor." And she goes, "But don't go to University of Michigan Hospital, because they don't know anything about mold there." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went to a doctor he's part of the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. Okay, but like 40% of homes have enough mold, or buildings, 40% of buildings, at least in the United States, have enough mold to negatively affect the people living in that building or working in that building. All you need is, this is drywall, right? These homes are made out of paper. These walls are drywall. You get them wet within 24 hours, they're growing mold. So you got to find the source of the water intrusion. Then you got to cut out the mold. Then you got to clean the area, change the carpet, change these drapes or whatever that would be absorbed, having absorbed the spores. So now these are the infections that medicine is missing: parasites, mold, candida, chronic bacteria, chronic virus. And then there's an infection in the heart called Nanobacterium sanguinum. And that's so super small. And it was only discovered like, when was it discovered? 2013 maybe. So it's pretty new. And it's like 50 times smaller than standard bacteria. And it's in the literature, but like medicine doesn't look at it because it's pretty still new, and there's no drug for it. So these are all the infections that I think are causing high C-reactive protein, high LDL, and it lowers your HDL, it raises your triglycerides. But beyond that, there's the high carb diet, grains and sugar, and then you get abdominal fat or visceral fat, and that in itself is inflammatory. So now the body is treating that fat as if it was an infection, right? So now you got the high LDL, the high triglycerides, the whole, looks like diabetes, looks like heart disease. And then another factor, which I figured this out 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, from other doctors: infections in the teeth. So cavitations, bad root canals, and they're in the jaw. And you can have no symptoms, no gum recession, no cavity, no pain, no redness, and yet you have this raging infection in your mouth, and it goes into your heart and it causes plaquing, and then you have a heart attack. Or for women, it goes into their breast and they get breast cancer. And there are documented, research and identifying the organisms and all that stuff in thousands of cases. And this goes back to the 19 teens with Dr. Weston Price. And he had people he pulled bad teeth out that were infected, and then he put them under the skin of a rabbit, and the rabbit got the same disease as the person had from the bacteria in the teeth. So again, another example of an infection that could be causing heart disease, plaquing, heart attacks, high LDL. I'm just saying, like, standard cardiology is so missing the boat on how to get their patients well, because the patient can have an infection and they get diagnosed with high LDL and put on a statin. And the infection is not even addressed, not even looked for. What they need is a dentist, or what they need is an immunologist, or what they need is a dietitian to get them off the junk food. Or they go to a diabetologist, endocrinologist, and they say, "Oh, you have diabetes." Well, wait a minute. I've seen people with high glucose, high A1C because of an infected tooth. I've seen it in my office. I'm a chiropractor. Like this, it's my love to treat people with nutrition. And, in the last 30 years then, studying this and then practicing it since 98, I see things that other doctors don't see, even though it's their specialty. And the reason why I see it is because, number one, I don't take insurance. patients pay me cash. Now they already have insurance, they're already paying for insurance. Now they come to me and they spend more money, and I have to get them well, or else I won't have a practice. Why would somebody come to a doctor who doesn't get anybody well? Well, if you got insurance and the doctor takes your insurance, you'll go see him or her, and maybe you get well, maybe not. But I've elevated my demand to be a better and better physician, as you know, is because I don't take insurance. I stopped taking insurance in 2005. So it's been 19 years, no insurance. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I see these problems that medical doctors who specialize, they need to be seeing it. Now, the other thing is I see such a wide variety of people because in my paperwork and in my, legally, I supply nutrients and I help the body get better. That's the simplicity of it. I don't treat disease. I do not treat disease. And why would I treat a disease when, that's a specialty, but I'm treating the whole body, fixing the whole body up, and then these problems tend to go away. So, but anyways, I see a wide variety of people. So I have an MS patient right now, and her left leg totally stiff, right? I put her on supplements for parasites. She's been pooping out parasites. Now she can move her leg like 5 inches one way, 5 inches the other way. Her hip and her knee and her ankle, they're all starting to flow a little bit. So am I a specialist in multiple sclerosis? No, not at all. I'm a specialist in getting the human body better. So I have a lot of variety of stories about these weird conditions. One time I had a girl, she still comes to the office, and she was born with like half a brain. Okay, the initial diagnosis was not given to her until she was like 10 years old. When I started to see her, she was 6. She couldn't walk, she couldn't crawl, she didn't speak. And I put her on supplements for her brain. And within 6 months, not only could she start crawling, but she was standing up and walking under her own power in 6 months because of the supplements that I gave her. And these supplements actually they were invented in the early 1950s. And the company is called Standard Process. So like, am I a specialist in degenerative, congenital brain disorders? No, not at all. I feed the glands, I feed the pituitary, I feed the brain, I feed the nervous system, the myelin sheath, the good fats, that kind of stuff. So I just, throughout my career, I just have all these wild stories about, weird things going away because I have this broad knowledge about how the body works and how to fix it. And so then again, we have people with, common fatigue and muscle aches and fibromyalgia. And so what's causing that? It could be Lyme disease. So you go to a doctor, they test the Lyme with the Western blot test and it comes back negative. Then what? Well, they come to me, I find it because I use different forms of testing. And again, I don't use any drugs because mostly medical doctors give an antibiotic for Lyme disease, but actually herbs do a really good job of helping the body with Lyme. But you have to prepare for that. You have to get the parasites out. You have to get the toxins out. Then you can go after Lyme. So I have a whole system. And yeah, but I have a husband and wife right now. He's got fibromyalgia and she's got horrible anxiety around her heart. And they're both doing fantastically better. And it's been like 6 months or something, and it's work, right? It's diet and supplements. And they come to see me initially once a week and then every other week, every 3 weeks, like that. So I see patients locally and then I see people out of state also. We do phone
Wow.
video consultations.
No. So you mentioned antibiotics. In the US, would you say that antibiotics are overprescribed?
I
Because
think,
in Japan, they certainly are.
well, when I read up on this, antibiotics are overused in cattle. And I do think that sometimes doctors don't give antibiotics when they should. I've seen that. I had a patient once with super high triglycerides. It was like 1,000 or something. And I think he had an infection. So I said, go see a medical doctor, test the white blood cells, go get an antibiotic. So that's what he did. He went to the doctor, high white blood cells, did not give him an antibiotic, gave him a steroid and a statin drug. And I'm like pulling my hair out, like obviously it's an infection. Now there's other people who I know a woman, she wasn't my patient, she was a friend. She had an infection and she went to the doctor, and instead of treating that with an antibiotic, he gave her Prozac because she was complaining. So I've seen all kinds of a wide variety of problems with, the prescription of drugs. Now, a lot of people, they've taken antibiotics over and over again, let's say 6 times a year because of chronic sinuses, for example, or chronic ear infection. Well, the antibiotic's not working, right? It did work for a few weeks, but then the problem came back. That means they need more drainage. They need the lymphatic system to drain out the liver. Maybe they're constipated. There's got to be some flow of the crap out of their body. So again, that's where supplements come in. And the lymphatic system, I treat that. I help everybody's lymphatic system. Like, that's so important. That's the sewer system of the body. So what the bigger issue, the bigger problem is that medicine is missing information, missing data. And that data comes from the supplement companies. It comes from physiology and knowing how biochemistry works inside the body. And instead of trying to block normal physiology, like block the pain receptors and block the other, the dopamine receptors, whatever, all the drugs block. Instead of doing that, you want to get the crap out of the body. You want to clean. That's what you want to do, is you want to clean. Okay, so proper diet, clean the cells, and then people feel better instead of Mediterranean diet, drug. See, that's what we're doing now. It's a total mess. So when I communicate to standard medical doctors on social media, they hate me for saying this. Then they block me. And it's like, dude, I'm trying to teach you something, but that's their system. They're stuck in a system that, quite frankly, it sucks. And they're controlled by their license, which is controlled by big pharma, which controls the licensing boards, blah, 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 on and on. So as a chiropractor, I'm so thankful to have this license because it's so wide open. I can use all these nutritional supplements and diet, and that's like how you get 90% of people better, right? You can add in some red light, add in some sauna, exercise, of course, all that other stuff. But to get into the body and fix up the biochemistry, that's where it's at. You take pills and you want to, supplements and clean the body. And I have people put things topically if they have a chronic ear problem, topical treatment at the ear, essential oils, for example. Clean the sinuses out with Navage or a neti pot, water pick, clean the mouth out, that kind of stuff.
In your practice, when you have someone come in, how will you be advising them? If someone comes in with, they're on a standard kind of diet, how do you advise them to get started and make changes that are going to be beneficial to them, whether that's diet related, taking supplements or something else?
So the way I approach that is baby steps. And like I said, my main two tools are supplements and diet. So the supplements, that's easy for them to just take pills, right? 3 times a day, you take the pills. That's easy. And then when it comes to the diet, whatever changes I make sure that they can do that until the next visit. So I'll see people more frequently. Like, I'll see them once a week or every other week, and we make these small changes with the diet, and they do the change. Then we make the next change after that. Instead of, I know some of my colleagues, they'll do a 1-hour visit once a month, and they talk with the patient for a whole hour about what to do with their diet. I think that's too much. So my visits might be 15, 20, 30 minutes. And then we just talk about 1 or 2 things that they need to do. And then I show them, go see this video, go see this website, use this website as your foundation for your education. And then, so that's how we approach that. Now, some people, like, I just had a conversation last week with a patient. He's got IBS, and they put him on supplements for parasites. He's doing so much better. And he said to me, well, he goes, I don't feel like I'm in charge. He goes, I have to trust you. I have to take your pills. I'm like, but and that's true, right? But I said, your diet is awesome. It was awesome from day one. The first day you talked to me, and you said that you were afraid to make any changes. And I said, don't make any changes. Just keep it the way it is and let the supplements do their work. We might make changes later with your diet, but again, it's all monitoring, right? That's an important word that I use often, is monitor. We're monitoring for progress. we don't want the progress to skyrocket like this. We want it to gradually increase and be stable. Like there's no 10-day, vacation weight loss program. It's like over the course of many months, we're going to look for these parameters to improve, like keep it simple like that.
And I like the idea of the shorter visits and more touch points. That kind of would definitely I feel like if that was myself, that's gonna keep me on track much better than, getting a whole load of information once and then trying to work it out from there.
Yeah. And
Um,
I've been the
mm,
patient of a holistic doctor with these big meeting, 1 hour long and run these lab tests. And I was like, oh my God, I couldn't do it myself. And I'm a doctor.
yeah, it just becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dr. Schmidt, how can we get in touch with you? Do you have a website, YouTube, that kind of thing?
Yeah. My YouTube channel, just search my name, Darren Schmidt. And it's the one with 160 some thousand followers. And I'm on TikTok. Again, just search my name. And that's pretty much it for my social media outreach right now. My website is thenutritionalhealingcenter.com.
Awesome. So I'll link to those below. Dr. Darren Schmidt, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us and giving us some insights into how you're helping your patients. Thank you.
You're welcome, Dave. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.